not a simple question to answer why the scientific revolution occurred when it did. I think all serious historians would agree that it started in the late Middle Ages, the early Renaissance. It was very slow. Now, no great culture has been free of curiosity, of reflection, of contemplation. To know the causes of things is something that serious men have always wanted, in a quest that serious societies have always sustained. No great culture has been free of inventive genius. If we think of the culture of Greece or the following Hellenistic period, it is, to me, quite puzzling that the scientific revolution did not occur then. The Greeks discovered something without which science would not be possible. Something that is foreign to Chinese culture, foreign to Indian culture. This is the notion of rigor, the idea of proof, the idea of logical necessity, that one thing implies another. Without that, of course, science is essentially impossible, because the trick of science, of the sciences, is to find out mistakes. And unless there is a quasi-rigid structure of implication, then if something turns out unexpected, you have no way of knowing where to look for the mistake. You have no way to correct yourself. But the Greeks discovered this very early and codified it very early in their history. They were a curious people. They were inventive. They didn't experiment on the scale of the University of Colorado, but they experimented very, very brilliantly. And they had, and this is something that is only recently appreciated, a very high degree of technological sophistication. They could make very complicated and subtle machines and instruments, and they did. They didn't write much about this, and we find out about it only by recovering the instruments. They did not make a scientific revolution. Perhaps this was because their communication was not adequate. For us, this is the central point, but it seems very good. They were a small society. They talked freely with one another. The record of these talks is as good reading, even today, as anything that's ever been written. I believe that the answer lies elsewhere. In a matter of history, of course, to assign a cause is not a very rigorous thing, because nothing ever happens twice. I think that the best guess is that the scientific revolution took, in addition to what the Greek intelligence contributed, an element that is also not present in Chinese culture and is wholly absent in all the forms of Indian culture. It took precisely an idea of progress, not the Greek idea of progress in understanding, but of progress which has to do with the human condition. Progress as is well expressed in the second half of the famous Christian dichotomy, faith and works. The notion that the betterment of man's condition and his civility have deep meaning, and that we all have a responsibility and a duty to it, to history and to man. This is, of course, an Old Testament idea, and its rediscovery in the Renaissance and its resonance in the Protestant faiths seems to me a very essential condition for what has happened since. This, and of course, the rediscovery of the classic world of Greek science, mathematics, and philosophy. It was all quite slow in the giant days of Kepler and Newton. But by the 17th century, there were enough men involved so that in all the deeply civilized countries of Europe, and then in this country, societies were formed, academies, to bring men together for the promotion of useful knowledge in this country, for the study of nature, the discovery of new knowledge in England, the Academy in France. They could talk to one another and bring to the